Today, two versions of the Waterfall cape. Let's sew. Today we're going to make just a really fun cape. Typically when we say capes, we really mean fall, but there's so many capes and cape patterns that they're using for spring and for summer this year because they're so light and they're so comfortable and they're so breezy and they're perfect for summer. So then we're going to transfer them to fall because all we're going to do is change up the fabric. So this is really a great little understanding that I want you to get now so you'll completely get it for fall. You can make it again because you can see it's not going to take very long to make. All right, so we have no pattern. We're going to start off with 2 yards of fabric. So this one is a variation of the one I have on is a variation of the one we're going to make. We're going to make this one first, and I'm going to show you because it'll be a little easier. This one that I have on steps it up just a little bit. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is cut 2 yards of fabric. In this particular fabric, I wanted to show you it was a stripe because you're going to turn the stripes different directions, obviously, just because it's fun to play with stripes. So you're going to cut 2 yards. But when you go to cut it between the front and the back is only going to be 30 inches wide. And because the width of this particular fabric is 62, I only want my width to be 52. So I cut off a little bit of width. You can see once you make it, I would just go by these numbers, and then there's a zillion variables. You can change many of them, all of them, none of them, etc., etc. But this 30 inches is how long it's going to be this way. So if you're shorter, you'll want to make that less. But again, I would make it, understand it, and then trim it up. So it's 30 inches, and then it's 52 wide. I used the width of the fabric to get that wide. The reason I wanted you to see the stripe, so you could see that I'm using only 30 inches of length of my 2 yards because the rest is going to be my front. And then I'm using the width, so the stripe's going to go across my back. Okay, that's the first piece. Then I take the rest of the fabric that I have, my 2 yards, and I'm going to fold it in half the opposite direction. So you can see the stripe is going up and down, but I've actually got the stripe now going the other direction because then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this in half, and each of these are going to be my fronts, and they'll be the length I need them to be, and this is going to be 43, and again the amount they're going to drop is going to be 30. So again, 30 is the same width as the back. You can see that if I take this and go width, they're going to be the same in the front and the back. But this is going to be 43, and the reason it's going to be 43, and I'm going to show you because we're going to start just sewing this together, and I'm going to not really sew it, I'm just going to sew it in front of you with my pins, is because we're only going to go in 22 inches. And I'm going to show you what happens when we do that. So the overall picture that you want to understand is that the front is wider than what you're sewing it to the back. And all the excess is going to compile up at the front. And what you're going to get is this. Because if I take this up, what you can see is this is wider than the back. Not all the way. That's why the back is going to be 52. The front's only 43. And then what happens is it's going to fall down in the front. It cascades kind of like a waterfall. But you only sew up 22 inches. In your shopping, you guys, if you want to, you can go. This was Lafayette 148 is who did this cape. It's just absolutely gorgeous. But I want to show you where I did a couple of variations to it. I like it even more. So this is just really a fun project. No fitting, but what I would recommend, what I've got on, is like a little capri and tank underneath. So that a solid color, like one piece, one color, so that the cape, the over part, really, you don't want to look, too roughly, too whatever. Okay, so that's in 22. You sew in 22. I'm going to put the pin this way just so I know. There's my first 22. Then you take, that's the front. Then you take the rest of the back from this side and you're going to sew in this 22. So you can see that they're both the same length, front and back. And basically all you're doing is leaving a place for your neck to go through. So you leave about an 8-inch gap. If you decide to shorten it, just shorten it from the sides so that you have an 8-inch gap. Now you know why I don't pin. I'm not the fastest pinner in the world, am I? All right, we'll skip some of these. But I want to show you the variation I did because and there's lots of variations. Obviously, there's lots of variations. Okay, so that last pin is here. So I'm going to use the help of my little mannequin person here. But just before I do that, so you've got the front to the back now, and what you're going to do is you'll have all the extra here in the front. And see, there's place for your neck. What this extra is going to do is it's going to hang down kind of like a bias. On mine, what I did is I only put extra on one side. I cut it asymmetric, and this side I didn't, and I'll show you how I did the other part. But anyway, so also then what you want to do is come down, and I would come down about, 8 inches. It's completely up to you, but you're going to sew a horizontal, and that's kind of what makes this arm. And it's important to do that because otherwise it just shifts all over the place. These arms will keep it in place. And stitch, just to give you some numbers, I went about 12 inches down and go in about 17 inches. Okay, and I'll only do that on one side because you don't need, doesn't matter. And I'm going to put it on my mannequin now so you can see how it drapes. And I gave her an arm just so that you could kind of see how it did on the arm. So there's the arm, and you can see how it's got a little section for that arm. And then this portion is what's going to hang in the front. And it's adorable. And again, it depends on the different fabrics you make, their draping, all those variables, but you can see it just makes a really cute little cape. Very simple to do. There's 4 seams. You've got 2 at the shoulder and then 2 under the arms. That's it. So then what I decided to do was I thought for summer it would really make it more fun. And I took one of the panels and just cut it off. So as I sewed in the 22, I only made it the 22 inches wide. But then I divided it by 3. So you can see what I did is there's one this way, the opposite, and then one down the middle again. And then I left holes so that I could put my arm under this, but I left a hole to where my arm shows. That's all. So I divided by 3. I sewed them together down here so there is 1, but up here I could actually put my arm through them so I could have a little arm exposure, and it just gave it a little more summery look. So whether you do it this way, or whether you come up with so many different variables on your own, this is a great cape for summer. Cover up whatever you want it to be. I'm actually going to go sew this and I'll put it on so that you can see what it looks like when it's sewn, and I'll be right back. So here it is. Remember there was just 2 seams, 2 shoulder seams, and then the two stitches that make the sleeves, if you could call them that. And there we have it. So this is just fun and easy. Lafayette 148 was the designer of this cape. It is a fall cape. And yet with great fabrics, it can be so many things. So you see it's just where center front is cut past and then they're sewn together. Quick, easy, and this cape was between $500 and $600. So you really can save money sewing. And of course I used to cotton knit. They used a more expensive fabric, but you know, you can do this. But I want to show you one more thing. So hang on, I'll be right back. And what I'm going to do, because I want you to see that there's so many different variables. I gave you all those numbers. In this one, I sewed it up a little closer to the neck. And when I did that, and I only left a span of like 9 inches, this waterfall comes much closer to the center of the body. Whereas if you leave it stitched open a little more, the waterfall falls outside a little bit. The other thing I want to do here for you, because I'm just having fun playing, is I want to cut off the width and I'm going to cut off the length. So I'm going to cut 3 inches here and I'm going to cut 3 inches off the bottom, and I'll be right back and I'll show you that version. Here's the shorter version, and I lied. I actually cut off 5 inches. I really wanted it to be about elbowy length like a 3/4 sleeve. I felt like it'd have a more summery look. So I really like it. And you know what? You could even go shorter and see what it could produce. But most of all, the goal is to have happy sewing from Silhouette Patterns.